Hello everybody, ladies and gentlemen. So welcome to Europe House once again. My name is Angeliki Petric. I'm a language officer here. And together with my colleague John, you know John Evans, you all know John, but you don't know Paul. And Paul Kay is fresh blood from Brussels who just arrived yesterday. So we're three now at Europe House, three language officers, to promote language learning in the UK, organize events here in order to promote translation, promote languages, cultures, also European cultures. When we have, we organize events focusing on the country of the presidents of the Council of the European Union. For instance, now is Greece, so we had lots of events about Greek language and culture. Italy is coming in July, so watch this space if you're interested in Italian and Italy. The event today is the third in the series, if I remember correctly. We organized with Imperial, and now it's UCL. So we're very lucky to be able to count on Jorge, our long-lasting partner. And the two previous events we did on the audiovisual, I should call them audiovisual translation series, were very, very successful. I'm sure the one of today will be very successful too. And I think one of the reasons is that we live in an era with a revolution, a digital revolution. And this digital revolution has influenced so much our work as translators. I mean, when I studied translation, it was, you know, a paper, not even a screen, and dictionaries. And now we don't know what translation is, what interpreting is, what transcreation is, what dubbing and surtitles and subtitles and whatever. So all the borders were never, you know, fuzzier as now. And of course, translator training cannot keep up with that. I mean, it will come to translator training, but later, you know, when this is incorporated in the master's degrees in translation. So this is why this is such an important event today, because it will allow us to keep up with the state of the art in translation technology. And by the way, I'd like to mention something else. We had an event on Friday about multilingualism in the ancient world with Latin and Greek. And one of the things mentioned was that in inscriptions at the time were in Coptic, Latin, and Greek, and the text was not the same in the three languages. So localization is not such a new thing after all. And now I think I'll give the floor to Jorge to begin the event. So thank you very much.
Well, thank you very much, Angeliki, for the invitation to organize this event that we have called Multimedia Translation in the Digital Age. I'd like to thank Europe House very much for having banked on us on several occasions to organize events on translation. As you mentioned earlier on, we did one about less than a year ago. I think it was on dubbing and subtitling, and it was very well received. And we thought that we could just go the extra mile and look at other options, other activities that are taking place in the field of translation, and that make subtitling and dubbing look a little bit sort of old and classic, even though for many people it's still something new and innovative. I'd like to thank Angeliki for organizing this, but also John Evans, who is always behind all these events, and welcome Paul to London, and I hope we will be able to continue collaborating and doing events in this field. I'd like to say thank you as well to my three colleagues who have come from all parts of the world and are here today to be tomorrow in Reykjavik. Kim Harris, she's come all the way from Berlin in a very, very tight schedule, but we persuaded her to make the journey here today. And we've also got Minako O'Hagan all the way from Dublin, and Miguel Bernal all the way from Roehampton and East Putney in London. So we've got from quite a few places. Myself, Jorge Diaz-Cintas, as Angeliki mentioned earlier on, we were part of the translation unit at Imperial College until October last year, and since then we've been part of University College London, UCL, where we have created what we call now the Centre for Translation Studies, or CentTras for short. And it's been quite a hectic year in changes and so on, but we've managed to go this far now. We're going to, the format for the day, we're going to have speakers speaking for around 20 minutes, each of them. After each of them, because we will have to have a little bit of a chair dancing, moving to get closer to the computer, would allow 1 or 2 questions, just really targeting that speaker. Before I allow my colleagues to start, I would just like to mention a little bit about this digital idea we were discussing, I remember, with Angeliki, just trying to come up with new ideas and new topics that we could discuss from a multilingual angle. And we just decided that the field of digital technology, even though for some of us or some of the younger generations, it seems that there is nothing else that has been there before. You know, it's so pervasive. You know, we're talking about, or the industry talks about the second screen, when in reality we are working with 4 or 5 screens today. We started a bit late, sorry, because we ran into a bit of a prickle with technology, and at one point we had about 4 computers, 1 tablet, and 3 or 4 mobiles. And now it's just about 3 of us. So it gives you an idea on how technology is moving along, on how the way we consume audio material is more and more audiovisual, and not just on one screen. Long are the days when we will watch television in the family or in a group at a certain distance from the screen. These days is more like, you know, we have our own screen, we just get it closer or further away from us, we just manipulate it the way we want, we can choose the subtitles, we can choose the dubbing, we can choose anything we want with the text. And that has had enormous impact on us as consumers, but also as producers sometimes of audiovisual material, the newly coined prosumers attitude of just producing and using the material and so on. And virtually everybody wants to have translation or subtitles, or you know, whether it is because we don't understand the language, or whether it is because we are getting older and we need to hear and we cannot hear properly, and we need subtitles for hearing impaired people, or even blind audiences that cannot watch the programs but still want to carry on enjoying the programs or simply being informed. I was recently talking to some computational linguists and engineers working in the field of translation traditionally, and now they want to move more into audiovisual, and according to their calculations, they estimate that in 2018, and that's really round the corner, 70% of the communication will take place audiovisually rather than in written paper or anything like that. It is going that way. So that's why they're moving into speech recognition, voice recognition, automatic subtitles, and so on. So those are the areas that we wanted to discuss here today. We're painfully aware that we cannot really talk about everything, and we will be leaving things on the side because they will become marginal by having decided what our topic is going to be. But I hope that, you know, if you want to discuss that, we will have substantial time for a round table so that we can discuss areas that we might not have been able to touch on. Particularly, for instance, accessibility is an area that I'm aware that we are not going to be discussing that, but I didn't want to have a far too long table covering that area, so that I will leave for later. We are going to move now on to my colleagues, and we are going to go against a bit of the traditional tradition for redundancy. Ladies first, in this case, is going to be gentlemen first, and Miguel Bernal is going to be talking in the first place. Miguel has been working in video games for many years. He wrote the first ever PhD on video games translation here in this country, for sure, in many other countries, but very little was done before he completed his PhD. He's now working on a book that will be published reasonably soon, again on an area that has been traditionally sidelined and perceived as being a little bit too popular and not really worth it of research. I remember, and I hope he won't mind me remembering this anecdote, where we were at Imperial College it was a no-no doing a PhD on video games, on the translation of video games. It just sounded not right. So at one point, well, you know, he's working on the translation of he's working in the translation of interactive multilingual software. Oh, that will be really worth it. At Imperial, that sounds really techy, and that sounds really good. It was just a long journey to just see, you know, video games is much more than meets the eye. And that's what he's going to be talking for us today. I will say as well, before I just let the floor for him, that he works at Roehampton University here in London, where he's senior lecturer and teaches as well video games. The floor is yours now.